Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 739B, and today's date is August 11th, 2015, and the title of this episode is Ukraine Pushing Hard to Restart the War in Southeastern Region. Let's get right into the economic collapse geopolitical news. Now, out in Ferguson, we are seeing things basically erupt once again. On Sunday night, a protest that had been organized to commemorate the one-year anniversary of Michael Brown's death in Ferguson, well, it kind of took a violent turn when an 18-year-old person named Tyrone Harris basically fired upon the police with a stolen handgun. The police returned fire and Harris got hit. Now he's in the hospital, and basically it seems like things are starting to get out of hand. We're seeing a lot of agent provocateurs in the area, and we're seeing a lot of activist leaders, I should say, come out and talk about waging war. And on July 30th, the leader of the Nation of Islam, Louis Farrakhan, he delivered a speech during which he stated that he was looking for about 10,000 fearless men who say death is sweeter than continued life under tyranny. And basically he's calling people and saying, we should start to fight. Now, is this a good way to engage the government? I really don't think so, because the government is ready for violence. They're ready to come down and bring this to a screeching halt. But part of this agenda is to have this pushed out to many different cities, and they want to call it a race war. This is what they're planning to do, and this has always been their plan. They want to divide the people. And that's the worst thing that we can do. The people have to stay together. Forget about race. We all have a heart. We have 2 lungs, 2 arms, 2 legs. We're all the same here. It's different entities, the central bank, the U.S. government, that are causing a lot of these problems. And there's no reason for us to take sides. What we need to do is band together, march as one, peacefully, to let the government know our concerns. Now, will this work with 1,000 people, 10,000 people? No. It has to be millions upon millions. And we need to do this in a peaceful way. The government is always ready for violence, but we don't want to be the provocative, violent people that causes the government to come down hard on the people. Now, eventually what they'll try to do is they'll try to intertwine and intermix agent provocateurs into the group to cause this to happen. And we've seen this many, many times. But their whole agenda right now is to push race wars. It's to push martial law here in the United States so they can take control. Because we have to remember, they know this system is coming down. I mean, think about it. John Kerry is saying the dollar is going to collapse. That's basically what he's saying. I mean, it's not an exact quote, but he's really saying that because they understand the entire Middle East and what is happening there is falling apart. And they need to maintain control. That's their thought process. Keep control of the situation until they can get that event started. So they can blame this on another group or country. And what they would like to do is basically suspend the Constitution, because once they suspend it, they're never going to give it back. This is what happens. It's almost like during the 1970s when they said, okay, temporarily we're going to come off of the gold standard because of speculators. This is what Nixon said. Well, it's been since 1971. Temporary is about 45 years or so? So we know once they take it away, they never want to give it back. And this is what they're trying to do at this point. So we all have to understand and we all have to realize what is going on. And we cannot allow that. We cannot let this happen, basically. Now, out in Ukraine, we understand the investigators are now investigating MH17. And of course, the corporate media, BBC, the US corporate media is trying to say, yes, They have found pieces of the Buk missile system that was used, that was made in Russia, and they're trying to push the propaganda. But really, that's not what they said. First of all, they haven't even confirmed anything. Someone might have said, yeah, it could be. But again, they're using propaganda, not real hard evidence. And we have to remember, the MH17 flight was directed by the Ukraine air traffic control. It's funny how no one's really questioning that. We understand there were shots fired into the hull by Ukraine fighter jets that were following the MH17 plane. So there are many other factors to this, but it doesn't matter to the U.S. government central bankers, to the corporate media. They're trying to push propaganda. Why? Well, of course, they want to start the war in Ukraine. They want to point fingers. This is their goal. This is what they do. They never have evidence. They have propaganda, and they use it on the people. And if we go back to the NDAA, Section 501C, it allows the government to use propaganda on its own people. And this is what they do. And they do it very trickeringly because they like to leave off or leave out certain things. They don't like to give the full story. They just come out with things with no proof. Now, the OSCE, which is the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, they've come under fire again in eastern Ukraine. Now, of course, as we know, the Minsk II ceasefire agreement is still in effect, kind of. And basically what's happening, every time Kiev violates it, nothing happens. No penalties, no one says anything. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to get the OSCE out of the southeastern region. They're trying to force them out. And we see right now that Ukraine is continually trying to provoke the southeastern people into doing something. And right now they're trying to convince everyone that Russia is provoking this new fight because they want more territory. If they really wanted more territory, they wouldn't have stopped during the last battle, because they were almost into Mariupol and they were pushing the Kiev troops all the way back to Kiev. They could have kept going. And if Russia really wanted to invade, it would have been done with air power. They would have destroyed the entire Ukrainian force, and they would have just marched right in. They wouldn't be doing all this and then retreat back and say, okay, let's have a peace and ceasefire deal. No. It makes no sense. But what we're seeing right now is Kiev is boosting forces and military equipment near the contact line in Mariupol. Up to 1,000 Ukraine armed forces personnel have been massed in this area, and a Marine brigade estimates at about 2,000 people have been seen near villages of Sherekino and others. So basically, they didn't sign the agreement to remove their weapons. More troops are coming up, and we're seeing the US, the UK, the corporate media pushing the propaganda that war is about to start again. Ukraine right now, the military has threatened to use its entire arsenal against the southeastern forces. Yes, they are ready to go. If they attack us, we are going to open up against them. That's basically what they're saying. And coming out of the UK, they're saying the conflict in Ukraine is red hot, and the Russian-backed separatists could take more territory. Well, this is absolutely ridiculous. If they wanted the territory, they would have kept on going right to Mariupol. And they're saying they're on the move and they're ready for battle. Michael Fallon, on his visit to Kiev, said he saw no end to the hostilities in this area. Of course not, because Kiev continually violates the ceasefire. They've been stalling with the implementation of the Minsk II agreement. They're not removing their weapons. Right now, the U.S. is going to allocate $500 million from the United States government to finance the training of the military of the Ukraine. This whole thing's being ramped up right now. This is what we're saying. This is what we're seeing right now. The whole thing is being ramped up. Ukraine troops have been given official permission to shoot to kill in Donbass right now. And the U.S. has warned of a sharp rise in separatist attacks in Ukraine. They have seen more attacks launched in the last 3 days than any similar time period since February. The State Department spokesman John Kirby says the attacks include heavy artillery assaults on the southeastern Ukraine towns. Yes, this whole thing is being ramped up. They're pushing this as hard as they can. Russia is out there saying, listen, Kiev is continually pushing this. And they're saying that they should back off. Is anyone else seeing this? And the whole thing is starting to deteriorate. And we knew this was going to happen. We knew that this whole thing was going to come down in August. And here we are in August, and we're starting to see this. Now we're seeing Syria and Ukraine. War is starting once again. Now we understand out in the Middle East, the U.S. government central bankers are using Turkey, the coalition forces, to get Assad. I mean, this is pretty much a fact right now. I mean, you can't even deny what they're doing. And we see that the U.S. is using terrorism in Iraq, it's using it in Turkey, using it in Libya, Lebanon, Yemen, to convince everyone these are the countries we need to get back into, and these are some of the countries that we need to get into, and these are the countries that we need to use to get Assad. And we see this happening all over the place right now. And we understand that the United States government, central bankers, are using Turkey to fly their missions into Syria. We understand they're asking for a second base in Turkey. And right now, there is no date to withdraw the U.S. F-16 jets from Turkey. It's still undefined. Well, I'll tell you when they're going to be removed. Once they take over Syria and they remove Assad. Then they'll remove the planes from Turkey because they'll have the bases in Syria to put them. And we see the rebel forces that they're training, they're not doing that well. And I think what they're doing at this point in time is they're relying on the Islamic State. And whoever defects over to the Islamic State, that is fine. But they're not using the rebel forces right now because they realize they could never train them fast enough to take out Assad. The Islamic State has been training for quite a while. They took over a year to train. And this is why they're using them as their proxy army. And Putin is still out there pushing that Syria should join forces with Turkey, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, the United States to help fight the Islamic State. Now, Putin understands that the Islamic State is a proxy army for the United States government, and this is why he's using this tactic at this point in time. He realizes that it's putting the United States into a corner. Now, at this point in time, Iran, allegedly, has come out with a plan for peace in Syria. And they're putting this out there saying that maybe Syria should be split and divided. Now, we have to understand, the United States government central bankers, they want the entire country. But Iran is out there saying that maybe Assad should keep what he has, the rebel forces, that the sections they control of Syria, they should keep what they have, and Aleppo, since it's split, that should come under international control. Well, we know the United States is not going to go for this. We know they want the entire country. I mean, eventually, they might look at the political situation, they might look at the entire situation and say, hey, you know something? We better go with dividing Syria up. But I think what they want the port. They want the country. They want the pipeline to go through Syria. They want all the natural resources. And we see from the United States right now, they're saying their focus is defeating the Islamic State in Syria, but not changing the map of the war-torn country. And this is coming from a U.S. official which said this on Monday. Now, their focus is not really Islamic State. Their focus is using the proxy army to take control of the entire country of Syria. John Kirby went on to say, the United States has been very clear that we're not interested in doing anything that's going to change the territorial integrity of Syria, just like Ukraine. They wanted the port, they wanted Crimea, they wanted the southeastern region. The same thing goes in Syria. Now, what's very interesting, the proxy army right now, which is the Islamic State, has been intensifying an offensive on a group of towns and villages that are going to be in the buffer zone for the U.S. and Turkish authorities. So they're making the case right now that they need to clear this area out of everyone to make it a buffer zone. And they're having their proxy army fight in this area to prove their point. Because they don't really need a no-fly zone, because the Islamic State has no planes. The only reason they would need a no-fly zone is to keep the Syrian Air Force out of that area. So they have to make some type of reason. They have to have a reason why they want this buffer zone. So they're having the Islamic State attack the area where they want to have it set up to prove this is why they need some type of buffer zone. While all this is going on, the United States government central bankers are continually using the cyber attack propaganda to convince everyone that China, Russia, North Korea are behind all of these cyber attacks. Right now, the United States has accused hackers in China of accessing the private emails of top American administration officials since 2010. The private emails of top U.S. national security and trade officials have been compromised since April of 2010, they're saying. And they're building this up in everyone's mind because eventually what's going to happen is they're going to have to come out and say, yes, China, Russia, they hit our financial system. They hit our infrastructure. We don't have to prove it because, again, they don't like proving things because it's very hard to prove propaganda. They can just use it, and then people will go, oh my God, this is why the banks are shut down. Oh my God, this is why the electric went out in this city. And this is what they're trying to do at this point. And what they do is they use scare tactics. And right now we understand that they're using fear-mongering that the Islamic State is coming to the United States. The Islamic State is coming to the United Kingdom. And they're coming out now saying the Islamic State revealed that there are already several potential bombers in the UK and the United States acting as lone wolf attackers. They're already set up, pre-positioned. Now we know that these are the inside agencies that are already set up to handle this physical attack. And when this thing comes crumbling down, this will be a physical attack accompanied by a cyber attack to bring all the players in. Because we see right now, I mean, just from the statement from John Kerry, they're worried about the dollar collapsing because they want control of this whole thing when it comes down. Because they need to prove that it was some other country or group that did this. And they're letting everyone know and understand that, let's say if the Iran deal doesn't go through, the dollar can collapse. It's not just the Iran deal. It's that this debt system, this debt machine, this petrodollar system can't be pushed out any further. It cannot be propped up anymore. And this is their warnings. This is the warning they're given right now to let everyone know. And this is why everyone continually needs to prep, because we have to understand there are continually more warnings coming out from other financial experts. They're looking at the data, they're looking at the indicators, they're seeing exactly what I'm seeing what they're seeing. And this entire economy is limping along right now. It will not be able to go much further. And we see that it could just collapse on its own. And this is what the central bankers are worried about. And if you look and you understand what's going on, you can see they're starting to ramp things up. You can see they're pushing the propaganda in Ukraine quite hard right now. They're getting ready to make a major offensive in Syria, and I won't be surprised if there is some type of false flag event coming very, very soon. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.